We do have breaking news tonight, a deeply divided moment playing out in American history as we come on the air. President Trump has just been impeached on both Article 1, abuse of power, and on Article 2, obstruction of Congress. The votes down party lines as predicted. And all day long here, we've been watching the short bursts of anger, the closing arguments from both sides. Democrats arguing the evidence was clear, arguing the president used the power of his office for personal.
We do have breaking news tonight, a deeply divided moment playing out in American history. As we come on the air, President Trump has just been impeached on both Article 1, abuse of power, and on Article 2, obstruction of Congress. The votes down party lines as predicted. And all day long here, we've been watching the short bursts of anger, the closing arguments from both sides. Democrats arguing the evidence was clear, arguing the president used the power of his office for personal and political gain with this election coming. Friend, thank you for being here today. We are witnessing a moment that history will likely record as the precise instant the ground began to shift. The clips you just saw from the major networks are not merely the daily cycle of breaking news. They are the audio-visual evidence of a systemic rupture.
We didn't even need the investigation to be undertaken. Just simply announce to the public the smear of his opponent, would be enough.
To investigate his political rival, who fired an ambassador who stood in his way, who conditioned a White House meeting on investigations that only personally benefited him and not the national interest.
As we come on the air, the headlines are screaming that President Trump has been impeached on Article 1, abuse of power, and Article 2, obstruction of Congress. The votes, as the anchors noted, went down party lines, leading many to dismiss this as yet another chapter in the endless volume of partisan warfare. But if you look closely past the chyrons and the shouting match of cable news, the real danger to the presidency isn't coming from the opposition party. It is coming from inside the House. And that is where the story actually begins. Democrats argue Trump is a clear and present danger to the next election. He didn't even need the investigation to be undertaken. Just simply announce to the public the smear of his opponent. The smear of his opponent would be enough to investigate his political rival, who fired an ambassador who stood in his way, who conditioned a White House meeting on investigations that only personally benefited him and not the national interest. The answer to all of these questions is President Donald Trump.
Right now, you guys are going around and forcing conscripts to the front lines because you have manpower problems. You should be thanking the president for trying to bring it into this conflict.
Have you ever been to Ukraine? Did you see what problems we have?
I have been to. I've actually watched and seen the stories, and I know what happens is you bring them on a propaganda tour, Mr. President. Do you disagree that you've had problems?
We need to stop for a moment and truly internalize the scale of what is happening, because the noise of the news cycle often drowns out the signal of history. We are watching a political moment that feels unreal, even as it unfolds in real time. Consider the catalyst. This is not just about a group of opposition lawmakers filing papers. The single biggest campaign donor Donald Trump has ever had. The billionaire who was so intimately woven into the fabric of the administration that he was literally invited to sleep at the White House is now publicly calling for the president to be impeached and replaced by Vice President J.D. Vance. This is not happening quietly. It is not happening through anonymous leaks or whispered rumors in the corridors of the West Wing. It is happening out loud on the record for the entire world to see. At the same time, this same billionaire, a man who was handed nearly unfettered access to the federal government and consulted on federal policy like a trusted cabinet member, is openly floating the idea of starting his own political party. Even more critically, he is threatening to pull United States space launches off the table entirely if he does not get his way. This is not a policy disagreement. This is a rupture. And what makes this moment hit with such force is the velocity at which it occurred. Less than 24 hours ago, this was framed in the media as a one-sided attack over the president's signature spending bill. It was viewed as a legislative squabble. Now it has become deeply, profoundly personal. It is the kind of political breakup that leaves scorch marks on the administration. Interestingly, the president himself seems to realize the gravity of this betrayal. When asked about it, he did not lash out with the fire and fury people might expect. Instead, he sounded genuinely surprised. He noted that he had always liked Elon Musk. He said he did not think Musk had said anything bad about him personally. And then, in a classic maneuver of deflection, he pivoted immediately to the bill itself, calling it incredible, calling it the biggest spending cut in the history of the country, claiming it would slash $1.6 trillion from the budget.
Instead, he sounded genuinely surprised. He noted that he had always liked Elon Musk. He said he did not think Musk had said anything bad about him personally. And then, in a classic maneuver of deflection, he pivoted immediately to the bill itself, calling it incredible, calling it the biggest spending cut in the history of the country, claiming it would slash $1.6 trillion from the budget. But here is the part no one dares to say. That response was not really about the bill. It was about control.
Let us consider the optics, which in politics are often as powerful as the reality. A red Tesla that the president purchased for Musk was still parked outside the West Wing, visible to the cameras sitting there like a metaphor on the curb, while the relationship disintegrated behind closed doors. This level of closeness is rare even among mega donors. It created a perception, fair or not, that Musk had real influence over parts of the federal government. So when that person turns around and starts talking about impeachment, it lands differently. It validates the arguments of the opposition in a way no Democrat ever could. And the timing could not be worse for the president because this is not happening in a vacuum. At the exact same moment this personal fallout is playing out, there is a very real, very detailed impeachment effort sitting inside the House of Representatives. These are not rumors. These are not hypotheticals. This is an actual impeachment resolution. On April 28, 2025, House Resolution 353 was formally introduced. 7 articles of impeachment were written out, filed, and are currently waiting. This marks the first time in the president's second term that impeachment has not just been talk, it has been reduced to text. Then in June, House Resolution 537 was introduced, adding even more weight to the legislative assault. The charges contained within these documents are not vague, they are expansive. They cover obstruction of justice violations of due process, usurping Congress's power over spending, abuse of trade, authority, violations of the First Amendment, creating unlawful offices, bribery, and corruption. And then there is the one word that jumps off the page, a word that echoes all the way back to the 18th century tyranny. That word is not used casually in a legal document, it is used deliberately. But before we analyze the implications of that language, let us talk about how we arrived here. Because this firestorm did not come out of nowhere. Over the past several months, there has been a growing pattern that legal scholars, advocacy groups, and some lawmakers have been tracking closely. We have seen court orders that do not get followed. We have seen injunctions that get ignored. We have seen funds that Congress appropriated, but the administration refuses to release. Each incident viewed on its own might be brushed off as a standard bureaucratic dispute, but when you view them together, they start to look like something else entirely. One of the central flashpoints is roughly $2 billion in foreign aid that Congress approved and courts ordered to be released. According to multiple filings, the administration withheld those funds anyway, not delayed withheld. This is not just a budget issue. It cuts directly into the Constitution's separation of powers. The framers of the Constitution did not give Congress the power of the purse by accident. They did it to prevent exactly this scenario, a president deciding unilaterally which laws to follow and which to ignore. The resolution argues that by withholding appropriated funds, the president effectively nullified laws passed by Congress, violating one of the most fundamental checks in our republic. And it did not stop there. There are allegations that migrants were deported without meaningful access to due process, even after courts had ruled on procedural requirements. The impeachment resolution refers to these as enforced disappearances language that is intentionally provocative but rooted in the idea that people were removed from United States jurisdiction without lawful process. Then there is the issue of testimony. The acting director of the Office of Personnel Management allegedly refused to comply with a court order requiring in-person testimony. Again, this is not just bureaucratic drama. Courts rely on compliance to function. When executive officials ignore them, it raises a constitutional red flag. An organization called Free Speech for People has been documenting these incidents in detail. Back in March 2025, they publicly laid out what they described as new grounds for impeachment based on repeated defiance of court orders. Their argument is straightforward. Impeachment is not about punishing unpopular policies. It is about responding to a pattern of behavior that treats judicial authority as optional. Furthermore, we must look at the additional charges brought forth in June under House Resolution 537. This document adds fuel to the fire by focusing on the unauthorized use of military force. The accusation is that the president ordered military deployments without getting congressional approval first. Now, to be fair and balanced in our analysis, we must acknowledge that presidents have been doing this for decades. Every modern president has ordered military action without formally asking Congress to declare war. It is technically unconstitutional because Article 1 of the Constitution clearly says Congress has the power to declare war, not the president. But in practice, presidents have been ignoring that for nearly 70 years because Congress rarely pushes back. However, the Democrats are arguing that what is happening now crosses a new line. They are saying the president did not just stretch his authority, he completely ignored the War Powers Act. He did not notify Congress properly. And they allege he put American troops in harm's way for political reasons rather than legitimate national security concerns. Then there is the article on abuse of trade powers, pointing to tariffs imposed under emergency declarations that courts are now reviewing. Critics argue these were not genuine emergencies, but tools to bypass congressional approval. The First Amendment article focuses on restrictions placed on federal employees and immigration judges, alleging that speech was chilled in ways that violate constitutional protections. There is also an article addressing the creation of unlawful offices, government entities, or roles established without congressional authorization. Perhaps most damaging is the bribery and corruption article. This references alleged financial entanglements and benefits that could fall under the Constitution's explicit impeachment language, specifically accusing the president of conditioning federal aid on personal political favors. These claims would require extensive factual development in any trial, but their mere existence in a formal resolution is significant. And this brings us back to that word, tyranny. This is where the resolution shifts from legal mechanics to historical framing. The founders feared tyranny above all else. That is why impeachment exists not as a political weapon, but as a safeguard. By using that word, the authors of the resolution are making a claim that goes beyond policy disagreements. They are saying this is about whether the system itself still functions. Now, in my view, this is where the real debate lives. It is not over whether the president's policies are good or bad, but over whether repeated defiance of courts and Congress crosses a constitutional line. However, we must also apply a cold academic lens to the political reality of this situation. Some people argue impeachment is pointless because the Senate will never convict. And looking at the mathematics of the chamber, they are likely right. Conviction requires 67 votes. Republicans currently hold 53 seats in the Senate. This means you would need at least 14 Republican senators to turn on the president and vote to convict. 14. In the modern era of polarized politics, seeing 14 senators break with their party leader on a vote of this magnitude is historically unprecedented. So if the math says conviction is impossible, why is this happening? Why proceed? The answer lies in the strategy of the looming 2026 midterms. Democrats know they are facing an uphill battle trying to take back the House. They need something massive to energize their base. Impeachment is about as big as it gets. It dominates the news cycle. It forces Republicans to either defend the president or distance themselves from him. It puts every member of Congress on the record. Most importantly, the opposition is betting that it could shift public opinion if the scandals get deep enough. We must look at the data. The president's approval ratings have been slipping, hovering around 42% according to recent polls. Economic concerns are dragging him down. People are frustrated with inflation and disappointed that he has not delivered on some of his major campaign promises. But there is a subtle shift happening within the Democratic caucus itself that suggests this is more than just theater. When Representative Al Green pushed his own impeachment resolution to the floor in December, leadership moved to table it. The vote to kill it was 237 to 140, but 47 Democrats did not vote yes or no. They voted present. That might sound like nothing to the casual observer, but in congressional terms, it is significant. A present vote is a way of saying, I am not ready to do this, but I am not rejecting it either. Compared to earlier impeachment efforts where Democrats overwhelmingly voted to kill similar resolutions, this was a shift. It suggests a caucus that is conflicted, one that sees the seriousness of the allegations, but is unsure about the political consequences of acting on them. And that brings us back to Elon Musk, because while impeachment has been simmering inside Congress, Musk just poured gasoline on the broader political narrative. When someone with his platform starts openly talking about replacing the president, it changes the media environment. It makes impeachment feel less theoretical and more plausible. The White House clearly felt that shift. You could see it in real time. Aides who had spent months defending Musk were suddenly attacking him. Reporters described phones blowing up inside the West Wing and on Capitol Hill. People were openly comparing the situation to a messy divorce. And then things got even messier. According to multiple reporters, tensions escalated further when the president began referencing the Epstein files. Again, that is a topic that instantly raises stakes and draws attention, and it reportedly intensified the behind-the-scenes fallout. We must also consider the risk of normalization. Regardless of how one feels about the president, the fact that we have now normalized impeachment as a regular political tactic is dangerous for democracy in the long term. Impeachment is supposed to be rare. It is supposed to be reserved for truly egregious abuses of power that threaten the entire system. But when presidents are impeached every few years, largely along partisan lines, we risk sending a message that elections do not matter anymore. It sets a precedent where every future president will face impeachment threats from the opposition party, turning the governance of the nation into a permanent legal battle. There is also the comparison to the 25th Amendment, which some observers bring up. But that path requires the vice president and a majority of the cabinet to act people the president appointed. That makes it politically unrealistic. Impeachment, by contrast, relies on elected officials. It is messy. It is difficult, but it is available. What is happening now feels like a slow build rather than a sudden explosion. Each ignored court order, each withheld fund, each refusal to testify adds another layer. And now, with Musk breaking ranks so dramatically, the perception of the president's political invulnerability has taken a significant hit. This does not mean impeachment is inevitable. Far from it. Leadership is still cautious. Many Democrats worry about backlash. They remember how previous impeachments energized the president's base, but the pressure is not going away. Rank-and-file members have procedural tools to force votes. Outside groups are continuing to document alleged violations, and public attention is sharpening. The real question is not whether the case exists. The resolutions are filed. The case clearly exists on paper. The question is whether Congress will act on it, or whether they will keep table-labeling resolutions while the record grows thicker. History will remember that choice. Because at the end of the day, this is not just about Donald Trump or Elon Musk or J.D. Vance. It is about whether constitutional checks still mean something when tested. Some argue that impeachment has value even without conviction because it forces a trial. It puts evidence on the record. It requires senators to vote and take responsibility for that vote. Historically, that matters. It creates a permanent archive of the conflict. It shapes public understanding. It influences future elections. And right now, that test is very much underway. The The machinery of the state is grinding against itself. The executive branch is testing the limits of its power. The legislative branch is reaching for its most extreme weapon. And the financial oligarchs who once stood by the administration are now actively calling for its end. If you have been paying attention to the signals, you know that empires rarely fall because of invasion. They struggle when the internal mechanisms of loyalty and law begin to disconnect. We are watching the disconnection happen in high definition.